Today I talk with Sandra Beaulieu, the award-winning author of Freestyle, the ultimate guide to riding, training, and competing to music. Sandra is a USDF Bronze and Silver Medalist, a USDF Freestyle Bronze Bar recipient, and a USDF L graduate. She saw a need in the dressage world for do-it-yourself freestyle information and is passionate about helping riders begin the dance with their horse. And we first met Sandra in episode 182, where we talked about creativity and horses. In this episode, we'll talk about why you might want to ride to music even if you don't want to do a competitive musical freestyle. And we'll talk about how to start creating one if you do. She also has a free download for you with some great tips, and I'll put a link to that in the show notes. All right, so here we go. Musical freestyles with Sandra Beaulieu. Hi, I'm Karen Rohlf, and welcome to Horse Training in Harmony. This podcast is about you making progress with your horse in a way that you both can love. It's about learning how to move and be in harmony. Because yes, you really can develop a horse to be both athletic and happy. When we show up as our best selves for our horses will show up for us. So let's get started. Hi, Sandra.
Hello.
Thank you for coming back and visiting with us on the pod here. Really nice to be able to talk to you again.
I know. It's always lots of fun. We do lots of freestyle stuff together. So
Yeah, so last time we talked here on the podcast, it was all about creativity and horses, and talking about all the different stuff you do, and the art from horseback and art with horses. And so we're still here today in the kind of artistic, creative vein, but another aspect of what you do. So musical freestyles, riding to music and specifically doing musical freestyles. So this is super fun because it's, there's some people out there listening who are probably like, yes, I've always wanted to do a freestyle. Or people have been like, yeah, I did a freestyle, but that was hard. And then other people are going, what's a musical freestyle? And why would I want to do that? So I think there's going to be lots to talk about. So maybe we can start by you just describing, like, what is a musical freestyle for the non-dressage people out there? And then also, like, why someone might want to do it.
yeah. Well, I think musical freestyle in general, I just think as like riding to music, and like that's so helpful for your training and your connection with your horse, and it's a lot of fun. So learning the fundamentals of how to match music to your particular horse is very helpful for just general riding, even if you're not competing. And then in dressage competition, they have special classes where you ride per level and you have compulsory movements that you put to music, and then you're judged on your technical and your artistic scores. So it's kind of like figure skating, but like just with horses. It's kind of the same thing. So it can be a little bit like there's a lot of like little rules and things you need to follow, but in general it just makes regular competition a lot more fun. So when you get the hang of it, and like the freestyle classes, everyone always loves to watch them, and some horses really love the freestyle, and it just kind of adds a little bit more pizzazz to a regular dressage show. And you'll see in reining and other competitions like Liberty and stuff, they do incorporate the performing and more exhibition and like costume type things too, but the same process is a little bit, it's similar in how you would put it together. You just might not have the same required movements. So and I also do a lot with like Western dressage, because that's gotten really big lately, and they do an amazing job promoting the freestyles within their discipline as well.
That's so cool. Yeah, and I'm glad you mentioned just the value of riding to music just in general. I think that's something, like, it's something that I don't tend to do, but when I do, I'm always really happy that I've done it. Like, it just can help. I mean, in a really practical way, as far as if you want to help keep your horse's tempo the same, you can find music that matches, and then it can help you stay on the beat. But I think it can also help just just with, yeah, I don't know, there's something that happens when you're like singing along to music you love, you know? And I think I don't know, what do you think? Do you think the horses feel it too?
Oh yeah, for sure. Like I definitely have different playlists on my Spotify on my phone. And so then when I'm riding, I'm like, okay, do I want my chill playlist today because I need to relax and my horse is a little stressed out? Or do I want my happy, upbeat playlist where I'm having fun and singing along? Or do I want the epic, dramatic soundtrack so I feel like I'm riding in a movie? Like, I mean, you can have like all the different moods, and then the like you can actually search the BPMs. Like a lot of times you can find the jogging playlists, like people who go out and go running, they'll actually figure out what their best BPM is for running. And it's a similar to, like, say your horse is trotting, and then you can find a matching playlist and find all these songs that are in like the perfect beat for your trot or your canter or your walk. Like if you need help keeping tempo. So yeah, for more like beginner riders and advanced riders, of course, but like if you're just learning how to stay in rhythm, sitting trot, posting trot, like keeping your horse the same and steady, it is a really good challenge. It's a little more interesting than just riding to a metronome because you can do that too, but that's kind of boring.
Kind of like starts to make you feel like you're going insane after a while.
Right, right.
All that
Yeah.
kicking, yeah. Yeah, that's awesome. So I think that that could be a first place for some people to start is like just try and like turn it on a playlist, whether it's in your earbuds or just out there in the air and yeah, just see how it feels. You might not think that you ever want to do musical ride, but you try some of that and you're like, well, maybe
Yeah, maybe.
I'm a
And
dancer after all.
yeah, and you might find a certain genre of music like your horse actually goes really well to. Like I have a friend who's like, I really don't like Taylor Swift, but whenever it's on my phone or it's on the radio, my horse like really kind of perks up to it. So it's really interesting. Sometimes certain horses will respond to different things. And some horses, like don't like certain music and you can really tell. So especially if it's loud enough that the horse can really get into it. If you're just listening on your phone, it's a little bit more enjoyment for you, and your horse will change because your mood will change. So you being more focused or being more relaxed, or it's kind of a nice, like, just trying to match the music is fun too.
That's so cool. I have my young horse is very, very, very sensitive. She like, I don't know, everything she feels and for all her senses, it just seems like more heightened than any other horse I've been with. Not in a like excited, nervous way, but she's just like, I mean, she had to learn like, okay, this is what sniffling is like. Cause she's like, what is that? And so, and I like to talk to my horses. And she's like, what are you doing? So I started singing, and so and I'm not a good singer, but I'm like, "Let me just, like, hum, let me sing," and then I was, like, experimenting, I'm like, "Well, which song do you like?" And I don't know that many songs, but at some point, I just landed on the song, and she was like, "Oh, I like that." So,
Yeah.
that's just me singing. Uh,
Yeah.
so I think it's a fun thing to experiment just with the music.
Yeah. No, I think it's great, and it's just kind of a nice exercise. I remember when I was a kid in Pony Club, we used to do, like, our jump lessons, we'd have to sing, like, "Mary Had a Little Lamb," like, you have to stay in the rhythm of the trot, over the jump, and, while you're singing it, so that was kind of fun, like, so if you know something really good, I mean, that's in the rhythm too, it keeps you breathing because a lot of times riders who don't breathe, instead of having the singing or talking, or if you're, like, lip syncing or singing along to the music, that can be helpful too if you tend to not
Yeah.
take a breath while you're riding.
I was gonna say, you can tell when you start holding your breath, because yeah. And for anybody whose wondering mind is like, what song was that Karen's fourth core really liked? We landed on the Turtles. Okay, that's even before my time, so it's not that I'm that old. Not that there's anything wrong with being old. Anyway, the song I landed on was I digress. The Turtles' "Happy Together."
So how does that
I
one?
can't see me loving nobody but you. Sandra's
Oh,
looking at me like, "Yeah,
okay, I
you're
got it.
old, Karen. I don't know
Yeah,
that
no,
song."
I'm very bad at knowing names of songs and bands, but when I hear the song, I'm like, oh yeah, I know what that is. Okay.
to me and you, I do. Dun, 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 dun. Yeah, I don't know all the lyrics, but
Take it,
it's
Karen.
a happy little song and a really good
Yeah,
trotting one.
that's
Anyway,
great.
so in back in the day when I was doing such things, I have written a few musical freestyles, and I found them really super fun. Really super fun once they were done.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true.
I found that they were kind of a pain in the butt to put together, and I was doing it back in the day when there wasn't like, you know, Spotify and ability to like digitally edit things on your own computer and stuff like that. So it was hard for me to put it together myself, but even now I think with the technical part being definitely easier than it was back in the day, there's still so many, it can be daunting to like select the music because there's a lot of music out there, figure out the choreography, and then adjusting it, modifying it. So I know that there's lots of steps which you are very well aware of and help people with, but what do you feel like are the common pitfalls for the average rider who starts out going, I'm going to make a musical freestyle?
Yeah, well, first part is most people just don't know where to start. And usually I guide them to start with like, what are your horse's beats per minute for their stride? And then that makes it a little easier to go and match to music because when people are like, oh, I love this song and I love this song and I love this song, and they pick all these different songs, but then when you actually check the beats per minute of those songs, they may be totally off and not work at all. So you might waste time, so if you and it's very easy to figure out horses beats per minute first, and then that kind of guides you a little bit as you're looking for music and saving music. And there's like tech is so much easier, and there's apps to help with checking like on the fly, just tapping your phone in the beat and stuff. So that part's pretty easy. Most people can figure that out pretty quickly. I think the biggest thing is getting to the music editing because a lot of people get very overwhelmed at the idea of using software on a computer, if they're not really techie to begin with, and trying to edit music. And usually once you get the music kind of laid out, it's like how to make them blend together and like how do you make it sound good, and then oh my gosh, I don't have enough music for this, or how you're so a lot of times you've got choreography and you've got music, you start editing and you have to kind of go through the messy middle where you're going back and forth. You might edit your choreography to just make your editing easier, the music editing, or you'll find different music to go along with your choreography. So you may have a little bit back and forth until it's ready to do your first competition, and then you get feedback from a few judges, and then you kind of see like where the problems are. And so it takes a little while to get it ironed out. But I definitely think that editing the music is probably the hardest part for most people, but that's kind of further down the lane. And I have a lot of little shortcuts, and there's a lot of like young people that are really quick and agile on the computer that can do GarageBand or Audacity that could probably do it for you if you
Find
are.
a 17-year-old.
Yeah. So I mean, it's not, a lot of people think, oh my gosh, I've got to do it myself. And there are some freestyle designers like myself, and there's another woman, Amanda Braun, and they'll like, if say you have everything done and you just can't quite edit the songs, you can actually just hire someone to just do the music editing for you and not the whole thing. So
Just to
that's a
make
little.
those transitions, like,
Yeah.
so that it doesn't, like, get off the, beat completely or just to blend, stuff like that?
Yeah, yeah, so it's a little bit easier to, like, have the right format and make sure you're under the time limit and, like, just kinda check on things, but m most people, I think, can usually get the choreography and the music, kinda the way they want it, and then they're like, "Okay, now you do that part." So I have a lot of people I just help with that little part of it, but yeah, I mean, it's either like the beginning, they don't know where to start, or then it's like finishing it is like also a little bit of a
Mm.
hump part. Yeah, it's a little hard.
And I can imagine, like, having gone through the process of learning how to edit stuff, audio and video, sometimes I can get hung up on, like, I just wanna get this transition, and I can waste a lot of time
Mhm.
where, just trying to figure it out and figure it out when I could have just done what you said is like, okay, get that close enough and then hand it to someone and go, could you just make that look better? Just that
Yeah,
little,
right,
that one
right.
second moment in there. So, everybody has a different process, but some people like go in order and as soon as they get stuck there. And sometimes you gotta just go past that and then you can come back and tidy it up.
Yeah.
Which actually brings me to the process itself. So, is there kind of a general overview? Because as you were talking, I was thinking, well, do you get the choreography? Like, because you have the choice, right? Of like, as long as you have those compulsory movements, you have a lot of choice of where to put them. So, do you do that first and then try to match music, or do you start with a song and go, okay, I gotta get my horse to do stuff at that particular part of the song? I'm imagine a little bit of everything in both. But do you
Yeah.
have a general process?
Yeah, I usually try to encourage people to go, I mean, you can start anywhere you want, but usually like first time freestyle people when they're doing the choreography, I have them go through the process of like, create your ideal test. Like if you and your horse exactly how if you had to ride all these movements, what would be the best way for you? Which direction would you turn off the center line? What's your horse's best, half pass side? Or what do you want to show the judge? Like going that direction. What do you kind of want to hide or do less of? You kind of go through those things and just like making sure that you have a general idea of like how you would prefer to ride the test. Because if you go by the music, which you can also do if you have a song that you're like, oh my gosh, my whole freestyle is based around this one song. It's so inspiring. And then you find other songs to go along with it. But the basis of the song is, or the freestyle is based on one thing, then that you're going to build your choreography around as best you can. Because especially if you have songs with lyrics or it, has certain phrasing and a feel to it, you don't want to cut it up as much as possible. Like you want to try to have your choreography be as close to the natural song as you can, because man, it's really hard when you're in the middle of a circle and your music ends there and to like try to create like repeating sections or like, and that's where you want to move the choreography around, because some of it's just not going to sound good, no matter how hard you try, unless someone's actually recreating the music for you, which, of course you need like a professional musician and pay a lot of money for that. But yeah, both ways you can do is either music you love first, but make sure it matches your horse, or the choreography first, and then you're gonna just kind of keep adapting back and forth between them.
Yeah. Yeah, I've had music where there's like a certain part of the song where it's like, that's the extension. It just
Mhm.
has to be the extension because
Right.
it's, it just swells and is big. And so I remember trying to like orchestrate, okay, how do I work it out? So at that point in the song, I'm heading across the diagonal or something like that. And then other times had music that was a little more kind of atmospheric that could even be used between a couple gates, so it didn't even have to edit for that. But I agree with the like the you shouldn't what's the rule of editing? You shouldn't notice the editing, right? And so it should make sense of like, yeah, maybe not halfway through your half pass the music changes or your circle or um
Right.
yeah, so it is. I like that little dance between, okay, we're gonna start here and then add this and then try it again and then something has to adjust a little bit here and there.
Yeah, and if your music, like you said, your music has a natural extension and it's kind of the beginning of your test, you would, basically put your extended trot where you want it, and then you'll like, usually what I'll do is like, okay, I'm at this point, and then I just turn around, turn your horse around, and then you just ride backwards on your routine to try to find where your points would be, like maybe your transition or how am I going to get to the center line from there, because that's where you would start from the halt. Or I have a whole thing you can also do, like you can time your all your movements. Like if you have them on video, you can count them per second. And I have this whole handy like, worksheet that you can fill out if you're a technical person. I am not myself. I can't get my brain to do that, but you can also count strides. A lot of people will count, okay, my horse has 10 strides in the circle, right? And so then when you're listening to the music, if the music matches the beats of your horse, you can actually count, oh, 1, 2, 3, 4. You can count the strides. So then you kind of know, oh, I could fit a circle there or a diagonal. Like you can get really technical with it. I'm more messy. I just kind of do it and video it and then play with it and go back and forth. But some people need to be a little more organized. And so there's a lot of methods to use if you think more that way.
Yeah. And I think, we've seen the freestyles at the highest level where you can really tell people have done that kind of counting because it's like, the head across the tempes and it's like exactly matching and when it works, it's amazing to get that kind of precision. Um,
Mhm.
it doesn't always have to be exactly that precise, but like I said, if you got the beats per minute close enough, um,
Mhm.
there's a really good chance you can get that amazing syncing up, and then you sync with the music, and then you feel it, and then it's easier to stay in sync with the music, and yeah,
For
it is
sure. It's a
a
lot of
fun.
fun. And also like when you're finding your horse's beats per minute, you can also like I think probably the best thing for people at home is to just have their phone on them and use like a metronome app and set the app to, I have I'm going to have the link for you with all my freebies and there's like a BPM chart so it gives you like a basic range of the BPMs. Then you're like, okay, the trot's going to be somewhere between here and here, and you have a starting point. And then you can, like, as you're riding, if your horse tends to go a little fast and like rush, you might want to like have a BPM that's like one slower, like to encourage you to do half halts. Whereas if your horse is a little lazy, maybe you're going to bump it up a little bit, like only like by like one, really. And you might find that your horse gravitates towards being a little faster on one side or a little slower on another. So I tell people that too, because usually you'll create a freestyle and it's pretty good. And you go to a horse show and your horse is a little fast and you're a little tense, right? And so most people get ahead of their music because they're nervous and excited and tense. And so they're rushing. So then we had to work in parts where you're going to actually like know, oh, I'm ahead of my music here. I got to do this to get back on track. But generally having your music help you do what you want to do for your horse is nice. If if you can, like there's just all sorts of like little things you can play with in that way. And that improves your riding and your training.
Yeah, very cool. Got lots, I'm sure, a million little tips and tricks. But yeah, so I'll put the link to that freebies thing in the show notes. And that's great just to have something to get started. And I think
Yeah.
the other thing is like where our discussion is getting on the music and the tech, it's like that's the part I think the human brain goes to of like, I don't know about this part. But the other beautiful part of the musical freestyle is what you said earlier, like you get to create your test. There's certain movements you have to include, but then, what a gift.
Yeah, I know.
It's like there happens to be music in there, but I mean, imagine being able to create your test even if you're not writing to music. I think that's sort of an interesting exercise anyway. Like, forget the tech and the music part, but what if you could create your perfect, however many minute test for that's appropriate for your horse's level? Like, what would you do to make it easier? Or what would you do to really show off the thing that your horse does well? Like, because you can have degrees of difficulty. Like, yeah, I'm going to put that on center line, right
Yeah.
up by the judge. Like, what are you confident in? I think as a training exercise, it's actually really valuable,
Mm.
and then add the music if you want, or just play something in the background. But that might be something, people can start by playing with beats per minute and find some music, but you can also play with going, if I do have a choice, what would I do? And then
Yeah.
that might get sort of fun to approach it from that way.
Yeah, like for example, to get people like thinking is a lot of riders always say my horse's trot is always better after the canter, right? So flipping the whole test around and doing all of your canter work first and then your trot is as helpful for some horses. Some people are like, "Oh my gosh, my horse is so tense in the walk at the end." So maybe let's do the walk like first thing from the halt. Like you have your soft music and then your freestyle builds to the end so you don't have to slow down. So you kind of thinking about your horse's personality and how things go because you can do everything out of order and you can even break up medium walk is in one section, and then the free walk's in another section. Is more editing. The more transitions you have, the little harder it is for matching the music. When you keep the bulk of all of the gaits in one section, it is a lot easier for the music. But it's pretty interesting to be able to go back and forth and so those are kind of like little examples of how big ways you can have it be totally different than a normal trot, walk, canter test that you would do at a show.
Yeah, yeah. And there comes the creativity again, right? You gotta
Yeah,
keep thinking. Every other test you do, especially at the lower levels, is trot, walk, canter, but it doesn't need to be.
yeah,
That's very cool.
yeah. I think it's a lot of fun, and a lot of people kind of get stuck in their head, like they think they're trying to do it for like what they think what does the judge want, or what looks like a normal freestyle test or whatever. And so and sometimes you might take risks and do a really unique move, and the judge might be a little confused. Like, and that's where you get your feedback from the judge after, and you see what made sense. And sometimes keeping it really simple is a lot easier. Sometimes we have the tendency to overcomplicate it when we do freestyles, because we want to be exciting and interesting and degree of difficulty, and it's like, if you think about it from the judge's perspective, they don't have your choreography plan. They have no idea where you're going. So when they're judging, they're going to be like, they have to tell the scribe what you're doing and where to put it on the test. And artistically, they either have to keep it in their head, or they have to say, oh, go write this under the music section, or da 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 da. And so sometimes at the low levels, you'll have movements where the judge is like, I don't really know what that was. Or they get to the end and there's a box missing, and they're like, did they do a leg yield? I'm not really sure. So sometimes keeping it really simple is actually, the judges kind of appreciate that in a way too. So you don't have to be too complicated. It's just more about like setting yourself up well to do the technical part really well, because that can be, you want to get as high a points you can on the technical, like a regular dressage test, and then with the added artistic marks.
Yeah. So freestyle doesn't mean you get to make up movements.
Right.
Like,
Yeah.
and this is now a counter leg yield thing. Yeah. So maybe can you give an idea of just under the artistic side, like what are the categories of the general impressions of, what are the sorts of things the judges are looking for in that category?
Yeah, I think generally there's definitely like a box for choreography, and they want to see a little bit of symmetry, and like that it makes sense and that it uses the entire arena. So like when you're drawing your choreography, like if you draw it and you look from above, you want to make sure you're using the whole arena, and also that you're not repeating movements. Like, don't do all your diagonals from the same corner, or something. Like, they want to see that it's interesting and makes sense, and it helps you and your horse. And then you have degree of difficulty, which is separate from choreography, and that's a little bit more of like, how well did your movements pan out? Like, because sometimes you can be a little ambitious in the choreography, but your movements suffer, and then that's where the degree of difficulty can get, like, they'll give you a lower score, but they'll reward you if you're really bold and it worked out well. So that's where you can get higher marks. There's definitely like harmony, like, that they are really looking for that the horse and rider are working together with rhythm and suppleness, and relaxation. So I always tell people, smile. You gotta smile. Don't look like you're about to throw up in your freestyle. Um, and then there's interpretation of the music, and then also music. And usually the choreography and music are usually weighted fairly heavily. But music can be very opinionated, right? Some judges might love your music and some might, not really, So I think as long as your music is fairly pleasing to listen to and edited fairly well, and matches your horse's beats, you're going to get a decent score on the music. And then if it's got a nice cohesive theme, kind of tells a story, and it sounds really nice, you're going to get an even higher score. But, if you just pick 3 different songs from 3 different genres and they don't blend together, of course, that's where you're going to get dinged on the music. And then the interpretation has to do with like, how well did you match the music? Like, did your extended trot go when the music went, and did your transitions happen on the music? So it's how well you kind of stay with your routine, and that you're basically matching your music in a more artistic kind of way.
I remember I sound like an old person on this podcast, but like back in the day when dressage musical freestyles all were like classical music,
Yeah, yeah.
or like it was the most modern it would get would be like, okay, here's the like elevator version of classical music, here's the here's the pop version of classical music. Anyway, so I had this Frisian in training, and it was like one of these big bounding, come off the ground with every stride, the kind of Frisian that like makes other horses spin around and run away in the
Yeah,
warm-up
yep,
arena.
yep,
You know what I
yep.
mean? They're like, what the
Yeah,
heck is that?
yeah.
And anyway, so I did a musical freestyle, and one of the pieces, the entrance piece, was like Fat Boy Slim, Weapon of Choice. And it was like, and I remember I'd be going, like wave, the music comes on, and I'd see judges in like the rings next door get up, lean out of their judges box, and look over here, and then get back in because they were like,
What's
and
going
I would get for like musical choice, I would get some people like, oh my God, because it really fit him. I mean, it fit him. He was so unique. And other people are like, they hated the music. So it was
Yeah,
risk, the kind of music, but I think it perfectly matched him. But anyway,
yeah. I mean,
and I
that's
was
where
forbidden to ever do freestyles again after that. And that's why I'm only kidding.
no.
I'm only kidding.
I was like, "Wait, what?"
You're like, what? You can do that?
Well, I mean, like watching the Olympics, like the past year, basically the trend right now is like hip hop and lyrics and
Mhm.
like popular music. It's like pretty crazy. I mean, like, is a little, some of the songs are a little racy and out there, so, but then then the cool thing is you have so much variety. And then even like now I'm kind of like tempted to create a really nice classical freestyle because it will really
Over.
stand out because everybody's using pop lyrics, and
Mhm.
lyrics, at least they're loud and they're fun, and if they match, and they're a little harder to edit sometimes, but it's okay to use them, so
Yeah.
now everyone's going a little extreme that way. And so if you can pull in stuff that's even a little bit, more kind of the oldies and like
Yeah.
you
Might be
know
refreshing at this point
Right,
to,
right, and that's where it kinda can stand out, doing it in a little bit of a more modern way,
yeah,
but yeah,
interesting.
it kinda anything goes now.
Yeah, I've been noticing that, and it can be good, and sometimes it's the lyrics, I don't know, I find sometimes can be distracting depending on what the lyrics are. I'm like, "Wait," I don't wanna be, like, listening, I wanna be watching, but,
Yeah,
um, you know, we'll see.
yeah.
Uh, alright, so what if somebody doesn't have any interest in competing or doing a dressage show? What are some other options and of things you can do and still have fun with
Yeah.
writing music?
Well, I mean, we definitely have experience together, Karen and I, riding exhibition freestyles. And so an exhibition or performance freestyle is really fun if you don't want to compete, but you want to kind of have a goal with your horse, and maybe you're just like to show off a little bit or wear a costume, and like, if you have an opportunity to do that, or even if you just ride at home, even making your own routine that you can video and like save as a memory, really. Like I find my freestyles, my exhibition freestyles that had a little bit more story to them and interaction with the audience, those are like my most memorable times with my horse ever. Like you get goosebumps when you're riding, and then to have the audience feedback, it's just very special. So I think, I mean, but if, you know, if someone's obviously shy and not really into that kind of thing, then you can do it at home or do it for your friends and family, like at a holiday party, or, you know, there's a lot of special things that you can do. Or someone might not even want to ride to music, but maybe they video their choreography and add music, and then they have a cool video, you know, like, so you can use all of the same techniques for creating different types of things. And like we've mixed a lot of like you know, it's fun when you can add in, instead of following like compulsory movements, you just basically can do whatever you want, which is really fun, like adding tricks and liberty. Or like if your horse is maybe a second level horse, but he can do pirouettes or a piaffe, you know, randomly, so you don't have to fit into one particular level. You can kind of play around with what your horse can do. Is really fun in performing, because, you know, the audience doesn't know what you're going to do. So, and you don't necessarily have to match the music like to the beat. Like I think for competing, I really encourage people, you want to have music that's on the beat, because the judge is really looking for that, and they will be watching that front leg, inside legs landing on the ground, you know. And so it's like, and how well can you stay to the beat shows the judge how well you can stay in a steady tempo. But for exhibition, you could ride to just one song that has emotional value, and there's going to be, you know, rise and fall within the music. And so you can match trot, canter, transitions, extensions, piaffe, all these different things. And it still works because it's an emotional change. And that's really cool too. So then you can, maybe that one song that you want to ride a freestyle to, but it doesn't work for competition, you could do it for an exhibition.
I love that. And I love what you were saying about, even if you just want to create like a video memory, you know, that you could actually get footage of you playing with your horse at liberty, footage of you riding, and you could still use a lot of these same techniques and skills to go, okay, how do we put that together, add music to it in a way that works? And you can, you know, if you're gonna, you know, it's so a lot of people making videos, but like to have a little thought behind putting together so it ends up being this, what looks to be a choreographed piece,
Yeah.
or just this artistic creation that you made just as your own memory, can be
Yeah.
really powerful.
I know
And
a lot of people, like when I had my Frisian who passed, like I had done so many performances with him that I really didn't have any regrets, obviously, with him, because I was out there doing things. But I know a lot of people would come up to me after performances, and they would just be like, "Oh, I always wanted to do da 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 with this horse, and now he's too old and I can't ride him anymore. I wish I'd done it," you know. And it's like they were only thinking of competition freestyle, and there's a lot of restrictions for that, and there's a lot, it's a lot in timing, you know. And like, is your horse ready for that level, and are you qualified, and blah blah blah, you know. So a lot of people just, it just doesn't happen. But if they're creating it more for a personal reason, it's really nice to at least just have it. You know, your horse can go lame, or something can happen to it any day, you know. So it's nice to be working on something, you know, just for the fun of it. You know, you'll never regret it, you know, later on.
yeah, and that's when I did the, we were both at the Iberian Spectacular, and you had such a beautiful like Beauty and the Beast thing with your horse, which I only could ever see the end of because I was busy with my horse. But it's just, I came in at the end and I was already just in tears just watching like the last minute of it. It was just with the costume and the choreography and the connection and the song, and you know, it just, there can be so much emotion there. The song I picked for mine, because I was doing bareback and bridleless, and so I thought a lot about like, what do I want to do? And started with thinking I need to make this a good setup for Natia and I, because we don't really go out in the real world that much. And so she was going from the bushes to like World Equestrian Center with 1,200 people. And I knew it was going to be a big deal. But what I did is I picked like my favorite song in the whole world. I picked my favorite version of my favorite song in the whole world. And I said, can I do it to this? And the organizer said, yes. And I went, this is fantastic. And it changes, but it had a beats per minute that was okay enough for trot and for canter. And I didn't try to get on the beat, and I really didn't choreograph. I just became familiar enough with the music that I knew it, and I knew where I was in the music and I knew certain things I was going to do, but I knew bareback and bridleless, like I want to be able to have some wiggle room to do what I
Yeah,
need to do for Nadia. And she added some things in there that I wasn't expecting. So, I think just when you set up to think about it, you can have a dream and pick the hardest version and the most epic version in your brain, but you can also just go, what would be fun? What would be easy to get something going? And it really worked for me, Natia, because there was much of it I was actually singing along to the music. So I'm experiencing, it was so loud, thank God nobody could hear me sing. And I'm like riding my horse bareback and bridleless in front of people, and I am singing out loud, and nobody has to hear me. And it was the most lovely feeling in the world, and nobody has to know that what we'd practiced didn't happen as planned because I just made it look pretty as best as I
yeah,
could. So, yeah, I think in talking about creating a musical freestyle, there's lots of ways you can help, but I think one of the messages is just to have fun and see where you can go with it, and start. If it feels too daunting, just start with what would be the most fun and easy for you and your
yeah,
horse, and then who knows, maybe then you'll want to do
right.
a little more.
Well, and why don't you tell the song name? I know the song. It's that rainbow song, the ukulele one.
That rainbow song.
Well, I mean, like I can never remember. I know exactly what song you're
Yeah,
talking
I know.
about.
That rainbow song is my favorite song. It's Somewhere Over the
Yeah,
Rainbow,
Somewhere Over the
Sandra.
Rainbow. Right.
Yes,
And it's
Somewhere
by
Over
the
the Rainbow, and it's the version from the Hawaiian artist, is it
mhm,
it's a very long name.
yeah.
Short is
Everybody would recognize it. I mean,
Yeah,
it
but it's a combo song of him singing "Somewhere Over the Rainbow" and then "It's a Wonderful Life."
that's right. A Wonderful
So
Life.
it
Yeah.
goes "Somewhere Over the Rainbow," he goes into "Wonderful Life," and then back to "Somewhere Over the Rainbow." So, Wizard
Did
of
you
Oz,
ever
one of my
post
favorite movies too, so it's the
yeah.
song from The Wizard of Oz. Yeah, and just
Did you
makes
ever did you ever post a video of your performance online that you could link to so people could watch?
I have. Yes, let me write that down. There's one of the first one that I put together. I just put like a compilation. In They played that song live, but you're not allowed to
I
put
know.
that on the video.
Yeah, I know that's the problem with YouTube now is like I don't really post a lot of my performance stuff anymore because it just gets tagged for copyright and
It does,
some
yeah. So
some
I
stuff will
put like
stay.
I have a video of the ride that I put together, just like excerpts, but it has some other music on it. So
Right. Yeah, I know that's the hard part. I haven't quite figured out a way. Some stuff will play if you let them do ads, but then it won't play in another country or some
right.
completely block it, but
And
it's really
and some, yeah, some you can get away if you're like recording the live performance of it out in the air, but then it's different if it's added on. I don't know, and it seems to change all the time. Sometimes I have music that's um, copyright free, and it'll get tagged because
yeah.
people can just claim it, and then anyway,
Yeah. Well,
YouTube's a whole other story. But so
well,
you have,
I wanted to say one thought on
yeah,
your how you were talking about like not having a plan, but like so for your riding bareback and bridleless, you can't really like because I used to ride my Frisian bridleless too, and I was like, I can't have when you're doing Liberty and stuff like that, you can't be really that exact. So you need, so I would think my choreography a little bit more in like sections. And I'm like, this part of the song, I want to be doing this, or this kind of like something in the canter. I might come across and do a flying change, blah, 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 blah. And then like, okay, then I'd have actually like filler music. Like I would put music for a transition, like say I was going to get off the horse and take the tack off. I wanted to have like a little section of music. So I knew that was when I was going to be doing that part. And then, so a lot of times I found myself, I was like performing, I'm always rushing from movement to movement, like trying to get everything in. But really, like with Liberty and Bridalist, it's like so amazing that the audience, the less you do and the more pauses you have, the more powerful it is. So like I found like over the years, it took me a long time to figure it out that like if I was off my horse and I had this little cute little, I go down with my skirt and then I lean forward and my horses know to give me like a kiss. It's like an on cue. And oh my God, like that is like what everybody loves the most. And it's the easiest to do. And like, and just little things like just stopping and giving your horse a hug or a pat or give them a treat. I mean, now you actually, the audience applauses when you stop and give the horse a treat. Whereas like 10 years ago, you'd ride and you didn't want to do that, like so it's interesting. Like that's what I like is you can really showcase what kind of trainer you are in a performance, because obviously in competition you can't do that and you can't talk and all those things.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I find it really, really fun to push myself as a performer, and also how can I stay connected to my horse instead of being like trying too hard and then getting out of sync with my horse, and then and then not having a good time. So it's kind of cool, but it is a little, you have to think about it a little bit differently, and helping you stay in the flow. And no one knows what you're going to do, so if you make a mistake, even if you fall off, try to take a bow and get back on or something. Like
Yeah.
no one really cares, like
Yeah, it's like at Liberty. Everybody loves when the horse runs away and then comes back.
right, right.
They have to run away first, so like don't sweat it.
Yeah, right.
No, it is. One of the things I found when I was first doing freestyles is I would catch myself feeling rushed. It's like you said, like I got to get all this done, and I'm like, but I choreographed this. Like I know it all fits, but to give yourself those spaces, because it's just the being in harmony with your horse is always the most beautiful thing. And if you trust the choreography and you know the music, like I just found with myself and students that I've coached, like there was this sense of rushing. And I was like, this is interesting. Like, why are we rushing? We've planned this out. So maybe that's just me. I don't know.
No, I definitely did that a lot. I would get like ahead of myself and tense because I was like just trying too hard to like show the movements, and then like instead of just like using that like, oh, okay, now I can walk and I can like tune in and I can listen to music again. And like, and then also like I found that if I rode to music that I could lip sync when I started like kind of acting and performing with the riding, then I rode so much better because I wasn't really focused so hard on it being perfect. It was like I was more loose and relaxed and playing with my props and my costumes and looking at the audience and gesturing to the audience. I'm actually playing with like for my new horse, like trying to think of something for a competition freestyle that can play off my personality of being able to actually like make eye contact with the audience or the judge, like just to a point. Like obviously you can't like lip sync or act like you're talking or something like that, but like little gestures and little things that just kind of add in a little bit of fun, is a little harder, but I think those kind of things can like help you relax. And it's like sometimes people are better when they pretend they're their trainer when they're riding, like act like someone else. So sometimes when you're riding, if you use music where you can kind of act like the character, you can, maybe you're Jack Sparrow and you're like all loosey goosey.
You know what I did learn, Sandra, that what you just said reminded me is so I tend to be a little bit hard on myself, and if people are too quiet, I'm like they hate it. They hate it. It's not
Yeah,
good enough. You know what? Nobody's clapping. And I realized that if I like gesture to the crowd, they will clap.
yeah,
So so in the last Iberian thing I did, it was 2 nights in a row. And the first night, the crowd was really clappy. And they're like, I was doing nothing. They're like, hey, I'm like, I'm awesome. And then I relax. And then, and then all goes good. The next day, I'm like doing my passage and I'm like, hello,
yeah,
hello. And so I just like put my hand up and gestured at the crowd. They're like, yay. And then I'm like, yay. And then I relax. And then Natia relaxes because I'm just like, oh my God, I need to make her passage more. They're not noticing. And
yeah, yeah.
or probably they're just like, maybe they're just like, stunned in silence from the such epic beauty that they can't even clap their hands together.
Well, you never
But there's
know
not enough
too.
time to think about that in the moment. I'm like, would somebody please clap?
Yeah,
Tell me
yeah.
how wonderful I am.
Sometimes like you never know, like the person before you, their horse might have gotten upset when the people clap. So sometimes you'll have an audience that actually is afraid to clap for you or asked not to clap. So sometimes that happens. And that's why if I do a performance at like a Briar Fest or any of those events where you can have a bio read, I make sure to say like, my horse loves to know that he is special. So please feel free to be as loud as you want, you know. But then other horses are, the crowd being loud is bothers them a lot. And so sometimes you actually want to wait and have them applaud at the end and the horse can be more relaxed. So, you know,
That's a great idea, putting it in the bio.
yeah.
That's a pro hack there.
Yeah. You know what I use now for my bios is Chat GPT, and it works great.
Oh my
You might
goodness.
like that.
Okay.
It's like I hate writing bios, but like trying to write it like a story, like instead of just saying, "Oh, this is so and so from Florida, blah 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 blah." You know, it's like basically read just like a bland. I try to like I'm like whatever my story is of the routine, like Beauty and the Beast or whatever. I try to like connect, you know, how like that story went and like put into as my theme, kind of like setting the stage a little bit. So I think it's kind of fun if you can like you know, get the audience participation, or they're raising their hands or they're clapping ahead of time, or stuff like that is fun. But
That's
not
a
a lot of
great
places, yeah, will let you do that. But
Oh no, I'm gonna remember that one because I love that. You can kind of already be like, "Hey, people, this is what you want to be feeling as you watch me. This
mhm.
is, you know,
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
cool."
Especially if you're being like, if you're being inspiring, like or motivating, or is it heartfelt, or is it almost like a little, do you want people to feel a little sad, like really tap into their emotions, or you want it to be happy, you know, there's all
Right.
that like wording. And the same thing with the musical freestyle, with a competition, that's your entrance, you know, you set the tone with your entrance music, which also doesn't really have to match your horse's beats. I usually tell people, if you want to be really creative and have something kind of cool, do it for your entrance, because it's not technically judged. It's just setting the stage for your artistic part. Like if you're going to use a lyric, or you know, like my friend, I helped her the freestyle, and it was like James Brown, like I feel good, you know, and like
Mm.
she's going down the center line, like yeah, I feel good, and everyone's like bopping their heads, and it was just really cute, you know, like stuff like that. You can, you know, you can go a little further with that. And I like to tie that into the ending, the final halt and salute. You kind of want to feel like it's packaged
Mhm.
together from start to finish.
Brilliant. That's so cool. Well, as we mentioned before, you have this freestyle freebies. I'll have the link in the show notes.
Mhm.
But you also have an online course with creating freestyle, and we share a student, Sylvia.
Oh, so funny.
Yeah, she's a friend and a student here, and she has gone through the course, and she just raves about it, and
Yeah.
she's so excited. So yeah, go ahead and tell people about the course.
Yeah, I made a course because like originally I started writing ebooks like for choreography, because I just felt like there was nothing on the market to help people. It was either you had to pay a lot of money for a freestyle designer, or you just had to figure it out yourself. And I'm not necessarily an Olympic freestyle designer, but I was like, you know, no one else is doing this. I'll just start doing it. And then I wrote an actual book, you know, and that took me a couple of years. And then, you know, so the book is great, but then it's like, you know, people really need like a little bit more hands-on, like, and videos. You learn a little differently by video than you do by reading. And so I spent all last year creating an online course, and it goes through all the different, you know, it's like each module is like a process. Like there's a module on music, and then there's like, you know, a bunch of videos in there that explain where to find it, how to find the beats per minute, you know, how to tell a story. Like I try to break it down as simple as possible, but then there's a lot of information within that, and video examples and worksheets and things like that. And then I think the most important thing with it is I do like 2 coaching calls a month, like Q&A calls. And so like Sylvia, for example, has been on pretty much every call. And so she uses that as her accountability to get it done, right? So she'll come after 2 weeks and she's like, okay, this is my new choreography. And she'll have a link to her YouTube video. I'll watch it. We'll talk about it. Everyone else is watching, and we kind of all help each other a little bit. And like it's really cool to see the different themes and the different horses and different riders. And some people just come to listen because they just think it's a lot of fun. um, but yeah, the course is like, it's in a more affordable way to make a freestyle. You have to learn it yourself. But then once you learn the skill, you can create as many freestyles as you want. You could even become a freestyle designer if you want to, and design freestyles for your friends at the barn, or, whatever. So I just kind of wanted to make something that people could actually do it themselves, because I just saw there was just such a gap in the market, really. And so people are loving it. It's pretty new, but it's going along really well. So it's a lot of fun.
Well, I can tell you it's getting rave reviews, and you said you're not a Olympic freestyle designer, but like most of us don't need an
Right. Yeah. You
Olympic
don't need
freestyle
that.
designer.
Yeah.
We need someone who
Yeah.
can relate to like the process of getting it going, and again, to not create it, to help people be able to have that skill to then take forward and do it as
Yeah.
many times as they want over and over again. Yeah, and those live calls, it's so fun to see her. You said she's showing up. It's that accountability. It's like an easy accountability. Like, oh, let me just show up at the call, even if you don't have questions. I know in
Mhm.
my course, it's like just all you have to do is just show up, and someone else is going to ask the question that you couldn't think of. And yeah, and you get to learn by watching somebody else's video and then their question and then seeing how you help them. So yeah,
Yeah.
you know me, I'm all about a live course with or an online course with the live support. So it's just cool to see you taking the time to create it. I know what work goes into that, and that you are showing up for people to help them along the way, which is just super cool.
Yeah. I love it.
Yeah, people should take advantage of that if you can, if this is on your list, because like I
Yeah.
said, there's just not a lot of resources out there to help people
Yeah.
learn how to do this.
Yeah, for sure. And I have those freestyle freebies that you're going to have the link to, also has like a special, like, discount once you're signed up. Like if you are interested in the academy, you can like save like $100 or something if you're on the list. So it's kind of a little extra bonus, and there's lots of articles and free stuff that I send out a lot. And each of there's like a worksheet. My favorite one in there, I have a checklist, like an overall checklist and the BPMs, but then I have an arena diagram page. So there's like blank arenas to draw in and color code, and it's got like the quarter lines and the center lines, so that when you're drawing your choreography, it's all like, that's usually the part that I'm so messy. So it took me a while to create it, and like that's, I think, the most popular, because you can print as many copies as you want. So I encourage people to use that. Those downloads are really useful. So but yeah, and you'll get, if you sign up for your email, you'll get information about my course or be able to find it easily. So but it's a lot of fun. I'm really enjoying it a lot. And I still
Awesome.
do custom freestyles and music editing for people, because some people will go through the process and they're like, I just don't have time to learn this. Can you just do it for me? So, there are still people that want to pay the money because they want to save the time. So, it's
So
a
you
little.
do offer that you can do that, is put that together.
Yeah, I started doing it again. I took off time because I was creating the course, and I was really like just wanted to finish that. And now that the course is done, I've taken on more clients. I try to be fairly affordable too, because I'm not necessarily creating original music for people. So there are freestyle designers that are like, they're basically have a background in music composition. And so those are the designers that like, they can make all the layering, the tracks, and like matching, it all seamless and perfect, and I do it more the way I teach people how to do it. So I try to keep it really simple. I use the software that I'm teaching, which is free. I use Audacity. Is free for anybody to download, no matter what computer you have. So I try to just use what I'm teaching so that that it's all relevant. It's not like I'm doing fancy stuff for those people and then and then not teaching the same thing.
Gotcha. Gotcha. Well, that's cool. So maybe share your website, and then of course go, it sounds like the process is go to the freebies.
Yeah,
And you're
yeah,
gonna get the freebies and you're gonna get lots of other stuff. But maybe if you can let people know your general website and
yeah. You can just search for thecreativeequestrian.com, and that's pretty easy to find me online, and everything's kind of under there.
awesome.
And my
Hey,
name, of course.
yeah. Yeah.
Which
Awesome.
is
Well,
hard
thank
to
you.
spell.
It is a little hard to spell. I still have to go, let me just
Yeah,
make sure.
I know. It's not easy.
Yeah. But thank you for taking this time. Really, really cool stuff. And yes, may you all go out and dance with your horse to music.
I know, I hope so. I hope people send me messages and say and tell me what they're working on. I'm happy. I answer all my own messages, and if you DM me on Instagram or Facebook or whatever, I'm happy to chit chat with anybody.
Awesome. Thanks, Sandra.